show because something Booker McFarland said yesterday you've got to hear about. All right, D. Wood, would you believe Tua is playing for his job this season?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, listen, this year is about securing the bag for Tua Tagovailoa, and the way you got to do that is you got to stay on the field. He has not been able to stay on the field, whether it was at Alabama or with the Miami Dolphins. Okay, if he happens to not be able to stay healthy, I think the Miami Dolphins could be looking at another quarterback.
Neek, are the Dolphins going to be looking for another quarterback?
I'd say no. I mean, I agree with everything D. Wood said. Yeah, if he can't stay healthy, it'll be obvious that they're going to have to move on from him and find someone else who can. But I think he will stay healthy, and he's proven that he can play. So that's the hardest thing to find in this league is a quarterback that can play well within a system. They had him as good as anyone in the league last year. As long as they can keep him upright, they'll be okay, and he'll be fine.
Is Tua Tagovailoa playing for his job? Of course he is. The only people who don't see that are Tuanons and Tuaneers, whatever you want to call them. Every other reasonable football person looks at this season and understands if Tua wants to get paid, like Justin Herbert did, like Joe Burrow will be getting paid, he absolutely has to finish this year and finish it strong. A 9-8 season, with him not being there at the end, ain't gonna cut it. He won't be around. Might be on the team, but he won't be that guy. He will not be QB1 moving forward if the season that he had last year is replicated this year. Damian Woody is absolutely correct. This Miami Dolphins team only goes as far as Tua Tagovailoa takes this team. But don't take my word for it. Listen to what Chris Grier said right here.
There hadn't been any contract talks beyond the 5th-year extension. I'm assuming that's still the same.
Yeah.
So what's the philosophy on the wait-and-see play right now?
Well, I just think for him, it's just letting Tua play again. Those things can be a big distraction. You have family, friends, you guys, everyone constantly asking him about it. And so I think from his agents and I have had discussions, just general, but not really about that. And it's just kind of agreed, like, let's just let him play out the season and then we'll attack that in the offseason.
Many people have heard that I used it in my last video, and people were misconstruing it and saying, Barry, you're reading into it differently. You're reading into it wrong. Really? Really? Is that what you're saying? Let me ask you this. If Tua had finished the season last year, if the Dolphins had gone to the, say, AFC Championship game, even if they had lost, what do you think the contract terms would be for Tua this year? Do you think he'd be playing on a 5th-year option? Or would they be extending him for $230, $200, $250, $250 million with $150 million of it guaranteed? Of course they would. You have to think. There's a reason why Tua didn't get a big bag this year. There's a reason why Chris Grier said, hey, let's play it out and see what happens. Because we all want to see what happens. He is in the midst of a prove-it year like I've never seen. Some fans don't want to believe it, but trust me, Stephen Ross ain't cutting no big check for a 9-8 season. Ain't gonna happen. Ain't gonna cut a big check for some quarterback who can't finish the season. Ain't gonna happen. I don't care what your fandom level is, at some point, reality has to step in. At some point, you have to understand performance actually counts for an entire season. Not midway, not for 4 or 5 games, but for an entire season. In addition, Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel both know that every single team on the gauntlet of the Miami Dolphins schedule this year is going to throw the kitchen sink at Tua. And in order for him to get that big bag at the end of the year, he's going to have to show that he can navigate through the defensive schemes that they're going to throw at him. That's what elite quarterbacks do. They don't play half a year. They don't play 6 or 7 games and be in the MVP hunt to deserve a big contract. This is the year he has to prove it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Everybody can see it. If you just step into reality and understand at this point, with this roster, He has to prove that he can drive this ship, that he can make it work. So far, he has it. He's a great guy. I don't have anything against Tua. But he doesn't have a big contract because he hasn't proven it yet. There's no denying it. I don't understand why people can't accept that Tua has to prove it in order to be that guy. You're already sold. Obviously, Chris Greer isn't. Obviously, Stephen Ross isn't. Obviously, some of the guys on ESPN aren't sold. You can discount their opinion. You can discount my opinion. But you can't discount fact. And the fact is that Tua hasn't finished an entire season. He hasn't won a playoff game. He hasn't done the bare minimum in order to reach that level of elite quarterback standing where you get the $150 million guaranteed contract and $250 million over 5 years. Not gonna get it. It's not gonna happen. So all the rooting and all the pissed offedness on Twitter because Barry says it, everybody's saying it. Even Dominic Foxworthy in his piece on that segment said, there's no doubt about his talent. Nobody doubts his talent. It's whether or not he can perform the entire season. No whataboutisms necessary. Tom Brady played for 20 years or so. Answered the bell every single season except for one when he got hurt in his knee. All the great ones perform. All the great ones show up. All the great ones win trophies. All the great ones win championships. They win. They win. Not stats. Not relying on stats. Stats are only good for those who don't win. You see, every single person that I see on Twitter who talks about all the stuff that Tua did last year, you only say that because he didn't do what's necessary to be an elite quarterback. Didn't win a playoff game. Didn't win a championship. Didn't win a Super Bowl. Hasn't even come close. So forget the stats. That was last year. It sounds good, looks good on paper, but it's about winning. And in order to get the big contract, in order to get the big money, you have to win. You have to be there. Tua knows that. Supposedly he took all of the different things he had to do, jiu-jitsu, bulk up, whatever you want to do. Train extremely hard. Mike McDaniel said he was off the charts on all the analysis. But now there's one chart that matters. And that one chart that matters and is between he and getting a big contract is winning. Is winning, getting into the playoffs, going deep into the playoffs. There's nothing else that matters. There's no amount of Tuanon level craziness that matters. It's time to get on the field and show what you can do. Chris Greer's waiting. The fan base is waiting. The media is waiting. All he's got to do is prove it to everybody, and most importantly, prove it to himself. So is this year a year that Tua Tagovailoa is playing for the bag, playing for his job? Absolutely he is. If the Dolphins don't make the playoffs and go deep into the playoffs with this roster, he's either going to be sitting around holding a clipboard or not be on his team next year. That's what I have to say about it. Let me know what you think.
Is anybody catching on to this Barry guy?